What's up? Welcome in. It's Foxboro Rush. George Balekji here with Sean McGuire. Sean, it is finally game weekend. Last episode before the Patriots kick off their season against the Bengals. Last episode of the week until we can finally talk regular season, actual NFL football. I love it, dude.
It's good to be back. And not only that, George, not only do we have football on tonight and this weekend, but I also received an A grade for our Nesson Digital Fantasy Football Draft. I know you didn't ask me about it. I know I completely put it out there, but I put the players in position, and we'll see how it goes.
That silences me not caring at all about your fantasy team. We'll save that for another time. Let's get into it. I'm happy about your draft. Congrats on the A grade. Can't wait to find out that you finished 8th in that league out of 8 teams. Big news coming, and we know the Brandon Ayuk, whole saga has been well behind the Patriots. But recent reports by Albert Breer put out the details of the trades and the details of what it was going to be from the Browns and from the Patriots. Let's just jump into on what the Patriots offer was. Breer reported the package for Ayuk included a 2025 second-round pick, a 2026 fourth-round pick, and Kendrick Bourne, who San Francisco asked for themselves. Of course, they have the familiarity with Kendrick Bourne. What jumped out more, though, is that Breer said the guaranteed dollars was well over $80 million, and he said, too, in the range of $80 to $90 million in guaranteed. Remember, Ayuk only took $76 million guaranteed from the 49ers. The return wasn't great for the 49ers to give up one of the best wide receivers, especially downfield attack wide receivers in the league. But Brandon Ayuk made it all about the money, all about the money, all about the money. The Patriots had the best guaranteed offer out there, and he said no because he saw the quarterback. The Patriots, Sean, when I see through this, again, and we knew it, they were used as a leverage piece the entire way to get the Niners probably up to that $76 million guaranteed.
Yeah, but at the same time, I'm happy to hear this detail. Breer said it on 98.5 on Thursday, and just to kind of, I feel like this was like almost a hot button topic and maybe it's just Boston sports radio, so take it with a grain of salt. But it was kind of a hot button topic on what did the Patriots give in guaranteed. What were the guarantees? We see the AAV, we see the average per year, we see there's reports about that since this happened a few weeks ago, but we didn't know the guarantees, and now from Breer we do, and it's just. You can't put a much better offer than that. I mean, there's only 4 wideouts in the league that have that received 80 or more million guaranteed per year. So I'm very happy to see this detail because I think it's like one of those things that you can not only gives it it cements it as a good offer, but it's also like one of those like, all right, good, like maybe now we can move on from this Brandon Ayuk Patriots scenario. So good to have that.
It's important. I agree with that. It was good to hear them being willing to go up to 80 to 90 million guaranteed. And their offers for the APY too sounded like it would have been a 3-year, $90 million contract. So $30 million a year, or a 4-year deal with $32 million a year. And that's what he can make up to.
Yep.
But the guaranteed money, whether it's over 3 years or 4 years, that's what's important to these players. You could have a total value of $300 million, but if the guarantees are only 10, they're not going to take it. They want that real, actual money, especially at his point in his career. They want to get that real contract out of the way. It was also something he added to, which made it so interesting. But I think it's like a peer into of like Brandon Ayuk and his thought process through this whole saga. Because from the jump, I said, like, take less money, stay with San Francisco, win a Super Bowl. That's what it's about. And then you can make more money through endorsements, through off-the-field ventures, and, of course, another contract if you're a Super Bowl winning wide receiver. Eventually got paid by the Niners. But he said why he was interested in the Steelers, who had the worst financial situation out of the teams he was looking at, was because he really connected with Mike Tomlin during the pre-draft interview process. That was 4 years ago. And that's where you're going in on, where you're going to walk away from a great... And he joked about it. He's like, I made it more complicated than I had to. Yep. This was the pinnacle diva wide receiver, wanted to get paid, which he did. But yes, also making it more complicated than he actually had to.
Yeah, I mean, after months, certainly after weeks, after months of, and we were on top of it, every rumor, every, little thing that trickled out. I mean, that was an extensive process. And I don't know about just Brandon Ayuk. I think everyone, all the fans, all the media members that covered those, months of it happening. And then he ends up in the exact same situation that he was already in with, more money in his pocket. But yeah, I'm happy to have that behind us too.
It would have been a great get for the Patriots.
Yep.
But as he noted too, and I think this is a big thing on why there is a sense of urgency to get Drake Maye on the field in the way of, I mean, he just looks ready right now, and you want the guy to get real football experience out there on the field and executing. I'm not going to play him until I believe in that offensive line. Like, I don't care if that waits till week 16, 17, I don't care, because you don't want him to regress back. But as there will be free agents out there, like a possible T. Higgins, and you guys will hear later, we caught up with Paul Dehner of The Athletic, who covers the Bengals, to preview Sunday's matchup. But he mentioned it to me. He said T. Higgins is probably going to be a free agent, and teams will pay a lot. But these wide receivers will look at the money. The quarterback situation matters to them as well. And why the sense of urgency to get Drake Maye should be on the field is, so when Elliott Wolf and Gerard Mayer are calling up agents and talking with players, trying to persuade them to sign with the Pats, they want to point at Drake Maye and say, that is who will be throwing you the football. That kid is a stud. He's the next Justin Herbert. He's the next Josh Allen. He's the next top 10, possible top 5 quarterback. So you'll get this boatload of money with all this cap space we have, and you also score a lot of touchdowns because you have someone good throwing you the ball. Ayuk cited it. It was about the money. He said he was about the money. It was about football. But why, even with the Patriots with all that money, he knew he would have hated it here because there's just so many question marks with the play calling, with the quarterback, with the offensive line, with the future of this franchise. And that's why it's another reason why you should play Drake Maye. But in Brandon Ayuk is another case in point. Maybe they wouldn't have even had to have gotten up to $80 million guaranteed if the quarterback play is good.
Yeah, and I think it says a lot about this season, right? I mean, we just talked about the Mike Tomlin sort of aspect of the things, and Ayuk preferred Pittsburgh over New England because of Tomlin. You know, maybe Gerard Mayo kind of has a nice rookie season, and all of a sudden he's kind of, you know, part of that package that's attracting free agents. And obviously Drake Maye, you know, if he comes in, if he has a great year, a great rookie season, then it's a lot better, you know, it's a lot easier to kind of attract these guys. And Gerard said earlier this season, I believe it was actually before the draft, that the Patriots needed, and he called them magnets. And the way he just said it is, you know, we need guys, and whether that's coaches, whether that's players, you know, whatever it is, we need members of the organization that are going to attract outside players to come in here and you know, and sign here. So I think that kind of the Ayuk thing in a weird way kind of circles back into, like, you know, how big of a season this is for the Patriots.
And let's get into it. I mean, what that can do, why you get magnets, that'd be a successful season. So the Patriots, a big question is, how do you define success? I love trying to ask that question about 32 teams. Like, there are the handful that it is a Super Bowl. It's Baltimore, it's Kansas City, it's San Francisco, it's Philadelphia. For the Patriots, and Gerard Mayo was asked this earlier in the week on the Greg Hill Show, what success is. And he said, quote, "A successful season is going out there, being competitive each and every game, and getting better as the year progresses." What would you consider, Sean, a successful season for the Patriots in 2024?
When I think of success, I don't think about wins and losses at all. And, you know, I think Gerard's using the word competitive, like, I think that's a pretty good qualifier, because you don't want to get blown out each and every game either. I'm not trying to say that. But, and I actually wrote it for Nesson.com today, when you think about success for the Patriots, it has so much to do with the young guys. And, you know, so we can kind of, and it's about the young guys, you know, progressing, developing, you know, that way when you're going into that next year, when you're going into 2025, you have this to kind of look back on. And obviously the most important aspect of all that is Drake, right? You know, you want to see him. And so it doesn't really matter to me. It doesn't, like, this isn't a, when is he going to replace Jacoby? You know, how many games is he going to play? How many wins is he going to compile? It's not about that. It's kind of a simple, like, sort of, how does he look when he's out there? Does he show you know, and how does he look when he's out there from the first game he's out there to the last game he's out there? Is he showing those kind of, you know, glimpses of, like, a franchise changing quarterback? And so I think that is the most important. But then you kind of go down the line, you know, you got young receivers, Demario Douglas, Jalen Polk. How do those guys look? You know, how they're going to be taking on bigger roles. So, you know, are they showing signs of players that, you know, maybe not a wide receiver 1, but are they good, you know, wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3? Like, is this a good receiver room with those guys? Go down to Christian Gonzalez too. You know, saw him for 4 games, and we kind of, like, are praising him to some extent after just 4 games, like, you know, this mega cornerback and everything like that. Well, if he comes out in his second year and he shows that, and he locks down opponents' wide receivers, and he's going to see a lot of them. You know, he's going to see him in week 1. He's going to see him throughout the first half of the season. And if he comes out and really impresses in that second year and makes that second year leap, I think that's a massive thing too, just because, you have an answer at a premier position.
Yeah,
And
it would be him matching up with T. Higgins and Jamar Chase if he's on a snap count. Then week 2, DK Metcalf. Week 3, Garrett Wilson. Get into Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, the Houston Texans receiving core, and it goes on and on. I mean, the Bears on their schedule, the Rams, just to name those teams. And I think I listed off 7, 8 right there, and it's all elite wide receivers that Gonzalez would match up with. The success of this team, it's not. This is going to be a 3 or 4 win team, Sean. Like people have to get closer to reality of that. It's how their schedule lays out. It's how bad their offensive line is. It's the losses they've had on defense with Christian Barmore and Matt Judon not with the team. And what we heard from Jeremy Fowler of ESPN, it sounds like Barmore won't play for the Patriots this season, where they're going to go cautionary because he's a long-term asset. That is another loss you have there. But the guys you have in the building, and even the second-year players that should have significant roles. How does Christian Gonzalez, can he play a full 17 games? And how does he look? Does Marte Mapu actually see the field and be that gadget type of defensive player between safeties and linebackers that everyone covets, especially as an off-ball linebacker? Can Keon White be that guy on the pass rush? And then into the offensive line. Does City So click? Does Layden Robinson get better? Because that's a good run blocker, but how does his pass pro grow along? And it is whatever you want with it. Caden Wallace was drafted. Can he be a good right tackle? Then Onwenu is at your right guard. But there's so many moving parts. Success of the season is if you can get Drake Maye on the field for a significant amount of games, 5, 6, 8, 10. And if he grows, if he gets out healthy, and if he catches some L's and takes some licks along the way, but if he gets better as the season goes on, because that is a kid that coming out of college is a project, still is. Caleb Williams, ready to start day one, especially in a great situation. Much better. I mean, that was a Panthers pick. Like Bryce Young started year 1, still the worst team in football. That's why they picked at that spot and got Caleb and also got him Rome Odunze. Even Jaden Daniels, the 2nd overall pick, he is more pro ready than Drake Maye coming out of college. But he doesn't like throwing over the middle of the field. That's what the NFL is about. I like that Drake Maye pick. Successful season for the Patriots is making improvements, is showing those flashes of a team of growth, and getting a return on the draft picks they made, especially on the defensive side of the ball. Because if they want to get good and sustain it, it's all about how you build a team under cost control, especially while you have your quarterback and Drake Maye under 5 years of team control before you have to pay him, and how you can be that. Because by year 3, they have to be back in that mix. So successful season is... And this is how low the bar is, Sean, in Foxboro.
No, without a doubt.
Are you watching football on Sundays and going, that is an NFL team? Because we haven't seen it in 2 years. Speaking of, and before we dive into this Bengals, I remember 2 years ago, I'm pretty sure it was the home finale against the Bengals, or maybe it was last home game, Christmas Eve, Bengals were in Gillette. And Cincinnati was in the red area. And what Joe Burrow did on 2nd down was throw the ball between the goalposts because he didn't like what he saw. And I perked up and I go, that's smart football. Living to play 3rd down in the red zone. Just like the simplicity, but that's how bad the football was all of 2022. And we know what happened in 2023. Just are you out there and are you a good, competent football team? That is successful for them to build off of.
And it sounds like such a loser sort. Like only losers say it doesn't.
But
like
that's
wins
how bad
don't matter,
it is.
right?
They've been losers since Brady left, Sean.
Yeah, but that it's the truth. It really it's all about the progress. It's all about taking steps forward. The young guys, and Gerard can kind of be included in that too. How does he look? How does the coaching staff look? I mean, that's another huge. If the coaching staff not only looks competent, I guess Patriots fans have been looking for that for years at this point. But not only looks competent, but looks like a legit okay, this is an NFL staff. This is a staff that can actually win games and compete for divisions. If they can do that, that's another huge, a huge aspect in the whole season.
And what I think is big too is for this offense to look good. Because let's say it just goes completely sideways and whatever Alex Van Pelt is preaching doesn't work out because he's no longer under Kevin Stefanski. Drake Maye, his 2nd to last season at UNC had Phil Longo as his OC. His last season at UNC, different offensive coordinator. Now, first year in the NFL, it's Alex Van Pelt. If he goes through 4 different coordinators, 4 different languages, 4 different systems in 4 years, that will affect his growth as well. You need this entire coaching staff to look good because what's big is continuity in the NFL. It's why I like certain coaches, why I like certain situations. It's why I love Jordan Love. You mentioned Christian Gonzalez. He gave us 4 games. Jordan Love gave us 8 to 10 games.
Yeah.
But you know what he walked back into this year? Matt LaFleur as his play caller, familiarity in the offensive line, and all those weapons coming back. Let's get into it for the game, the keys to the game between the Patriots and Bengals. We want to talk about this. I'll start with my first one, Sean. I wouldn't be surprised if this is on your list. This is the the offensive line.
Yep.
The five we'll see, Chuk's at left, So at left guard, Andrews at center, Layden Robinson maybe at right guard, maybe Onwenu at right tackle. We'll see. Can they stick with five guys? Can they make it through the end of the game? And I mean, like, not needing to get subbed out. I'm not talking about injuries here. Like, does no one get benched? And do they just control the line of scrimmage? I don't need them to win, but they've looked so bad in training camp. If the offensive line looks like, that looks like it can get the job done and give the quarterback a chance, that to me is the most important thing. We're not talking wins and losses because that's not what the season's about. But can the offensive line look serviceable for the Patriots offense? Yeah,
you're right. And that is kind of a no-duh. I mean, Gerard came out this yesterday and said the same thing. You know, controlling the line of scrimmage is controlling the game. So it'll be interesting, and you just hit on this too. It'll be interesting to see what the group is that they're going with. Vidarian Lowe, it seemed, was at practice today. I saw that on Twitter a little bit. We'll see if he's back. City So, we'll see if he's back. Or if they're not, how does the group look?
Yeah, and that's what's big is like Vidarian Lowe back again. Like, I don't love that at left tackle, but it's better than Chuk's Okorafor, who's been in the league for 6 years and has played less than 10 snaps at left tackle and was a guy that was brought in as a swing tackle. They tried him at left, quickly moved him back to right. Like, it's a reflection on where this offensive line is. You mentioned it, just Gerard Mayo talking about his offensive line. A key to me and something I'm watching for is how does communication go? How does overall execution go from the sidelines? Like, first-time head coach, first-time offensive coordinator, first-time defensive coordinator, first-time OC calling the plays in Alex Van Pelt. Like, how does all of that go? How does their collaboration go as well? Like, to me, that's such a key of just, can it flow? Can it be normal? If they're burning timeouts, if they're making bad decisions when they shouldn't on 4th and short or 4th and long, and with game plan execution and just in key moments and game management moments of the game, if that doesn't look good, like, that's, again, a red flag. So that's something that, to me, will be a key on Sunday of just from the sidelines, once again, does it look like a competent NFL team?
Yeah, and just kind of, I'll go next. I'm just kind of going to the defensive side of the ball now. We've talked so much about the offense. Gerard Mayo called them the big three, and we all know what that means: Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins. So it's a tough task for the secondary, for the defense in general, but for the secondary to have this week one. I mean, one of the best receiving tandems in the league, without a doubt, and to face them week one, that'll Christian Gonzalez and Jonathan Jones and Marcus Jones. Those guys it'll be a challenge. So I think another key to the game will just be, how does the Patriots secondary kind of stop, limit them? You're not going to completely stop them, but limit them. And at this point, it's Thursday afternoon. It's not a definite that Jamar Chase is going to play, but I think, the reports and how everything's trending, I would say he's going to be on the field. So, definitely a key aspect to watch.
Yeah, and we've seen even the reports of, I think the Bengals are going to announce it right before the game kicks off Thursday night. As of the recording of this episode of Foxboro Rush, nothing's come out for Chase. I expect him on a pitch count. But yeah, I'm watching the secondary. And who's a cornerback too? How does Marco Wilson look? How does Jalen Hawkins? Quick one, Sean, what's your last key you're looking for the Patriots against the Bengals?
I mean, I think it'll be the defense, I guess, to stick with the defense, the defensive line. We've seen so much change with no Matthew Judon. He's obviously traded. Christian Barmore's out. So I think it'll just be really, how does Keon White, what is, I guess, what's his snaps? What do they look like? What's he doing on the interior? What's he doing on the exterior? What's he doing on third down? What's he doing on early downs? Those sorts of things. Anthony Jennings, how does he look stopping the run? Josh Uche, is he coming in third down situation? Dietrich Wise, is he coming in third down situations? And I get, what are they getting for pressure?
Yeah, Uche is what I'm honing in on. Like, can he be more than just a third down specialist? My last key, can this offense keep up? Can they score more than 17 points? Can they keep up with the Bengals? At least keep it tight late. Eventually, I think talent separates itself. I think Cincinnati does win this one. But my last one is, can this offense keep up? All right, we got under a minute, Sean, before I toss to the Paul Dehner interview. Quick, what's your prediction Sunday final score? I need it.
I'm going to go 21-6.
Oh, my. Well, it's week one. You know what? I don't hate that. And it is. Wait, 21-6. Who's winning?
Bengals are winning 20-6.
You know what? I don't expect it low scoring. I think I say with Paul, I forget the exact score. We recorded earlier. I said 30-13, 27-13,
Okay.
21-6. I just think that this is going to be more than a 2-score win for the Bengals. We'll toss it that way right now. Sean and I are going to hop off. We'll leave you guys with this. My interview with Paul Dehner of The Athletic covers the Bengals. We get into everything for this Sunday. He also talks some T. Higgins and his future with Cincinnati as well. We'll see you guys. He's Paul Dehner of The Athletic covering the Cincinnati Bengals. Paul, appreciate you taking the time. How are we doing today, my friend?
Doing great. How are you?
Doing good, doing good. Football's finally here. Like, we're done talking about the offseason, which I know you've had plenty of being in Cincinnati with the Jamar Chase whole era right now, as we're dealing with Drake Maye and Jacoby Brissett by me. So I'm excited Sunday. It's enough of bad offensive line talk, and we'll see him play. But, Paul, I have to start there. With Jamar Chase, as of the recording of this interview, still has not signed his extension, still has not practiced for the Bengals. What's the holdup between the Bengals and giving an extension to a top 3 receiver who is worth the penny? And the longer Cincinnati waits, the more expensive Jamar Chase should get.
I think they kind of had an idea that they wanted to do this before his 5th year next year. He's still got 2 years left on his contract, and coming into this, probably preferred the idea of doing it then rather than they liked the idea of doing it right now. That said, I think the market is kind of dictated where they can be and where this thing can go. And they've decided they're willing to negotiate with them and willing to go there, but the Bengals tend to do things last minute. They tend to do things where they don't want to give big guarantees. And that puts you in this position where you are days away from the opener, and these guarantees and these the willingness to go down to the final hour put you up against it. And, it's hard to say where they're at. They've been very tight-lipped, both sides, on exactly the status of how this all has been going down. But, they're in a kind of a tough spot right now, but we're all just checking our phones every day for messages and tweets and texts and cryptic Instagram posts to try to figure out where it's all going.
Along with checking the time of arrival of practice and what clothing he's wearing. But I understand it. I mean, you have a top 3 quarterback right now in Joe Burrow, of course. You have a top 3 receiver in Jamar Chase. You want to get him on the field while you still have T. Higgins. But when you look at this receiving group, there still is T. Higgins. I hope I say his last name right. Andre Yosiva. Maybe I got it right. Jermaine Burton and Mike Gesicki, who you bring in. That's not a tight end. That's a receiver. Is there still confidence in this receiving group, of course, playing with Joe Burrow, that they can get the job done on the field? It won't be the same level as Jamar Chase, but this can still drive an offense like what the Bengals have with Zach Taylor and Joe Burrow?
Yeah, I mean, they love where they're at with this receiver group and with this offense. I mean, Andre Yosivash, you were very closer than most get on the first one. Between Yosivash, Gesicki, you kind of have 2 guys that can take over that slot role that was vacated last year by Tyler Boyd, who's now in Tennessee. But they're very different players than what Tyler Boyd was, and they give more versatility to what they can do. And when Jamar Chase plays, that means giving more versatility to where you can put him, where teams are guessing where he's going to be every time that he comes out there. And they just have a lot more ways that they can adapt as they go. And that's really the key, with or without Jamar, to what they think the next level for this offense is give Joe Burrow more tools, more options at the line to where to move people, create matchups, specifically get guys that can win vertically and find more explosives. They haven't been able to find enough explosives as teams have sat in these deep shells in front of them and just refused to let Higgins and Chase beat them deep. They can find those, they feel like now, a little bit more with the type of personnel that's more versatile. And so they like that. They really like that and think that can be an answer to where they go next with or without Jamar.
And I have to ask, I think the probability is 0, even if he signed a contract yesterday, because he hasn't practiced all summer. But what do you think the probability is Jamar Chase plays week 1 this Sunday against the Patriots?
I don't think it's 0. I think it's 0 that he would play a full workload.
Yes.
He has been practicing in a way where he has done workouts on the side. He's been in meetings. I mean, you'll see a cart go off after practice to the bubble quietly and secretly in the corner, and he's got cleats and a jersey to go get work in. I think he's in a decent amount his conditioning's okay. He's probably not in football shape for not having practice, and you worry about soft tissues. The soft tissue injury thing, to me, is where I would be most concerned with Ja'Marr at this point, almost more than anything, is just ramping up too quickly. And nobody wants to see that. We all went through Joe Burrow's calf last year for 2 months, and that's how that thing starts. And so that's a concern. I wouldn't see him being a full workload, even if he signed as we were recording right now. But I think you can still get enough of him in there where they can run a specific game plan. And they've been working this offense without him the entire offseason. So it's not like it's something where it's going to be totally foreign to them how to adapt.
Yeah, of course. And I do agree with that. I agree. Not a full workload. And that is my thought process on it. The conditioning could be there, but football shape is different. And if you get a guy finally in the building practicing week 1 or week 2, you obviously want him there week 17 and into the playoffs because we know what the goals are for the Bengals. And you brought it up. I mean, you saw it firsthand with Joe Burrow last offseason, and then the Bengals went out and addressed their offensive line again. Last year's left tackle for the Patriots, now the right tackle for the Bengals, and Trent Brown. He started training camp on the NFI, but what are the expectations for him now? I know he's a go for week 1, but what are the expectations of him slotting in as a right tackle? And that's a guy, if he's motivated and he's playing winning football, he is one of the best pass blockers in the NFL.
And that's what they want. I mean, they've just tried to build an offensive line of giant pass blockers, and he fits, right? It's like, give us guys that can hold their anchors and give Burrow time to, and then everything else. If you can do anything else, cool. But if we can do that, we're going to win. And that's kind of been their attitude and how they've built this line. That's why they have massive Amarius Mims, massive Orlando Brown Jr., massive Cordell Volson. Like, it's easy to find the thread that they've gone in more than any team in the NFL has and how they've built the pass protectors. Brown's looked fine. I mean, I think it's taken him some time. I'm curious if he's going to be able to do a full workload, particularly if it's hot and there's a lot of offensive snaps out there in this game, just because he has kind of gradually been working his way back. And even as a couple weeks ago, he was still taking snaps off during some of their joint practice with the Colts. But he's a starter right now. I don't know that would have been the case if Mims would not have had his pectoral injury that he sustained after it was about 3 weeks ago. He's close to getting back, Mims is, and I think if he would have stayed healthy, they were in love with what they were seeing from him, and he was going to be the starter, I think, opening day with Trent Brown as the swing tackle. But for now, no reason to rush a rookie back early from an injury when you have a guy like Trent Brown who's here, who's doing it, who seems to be gaining comfort in this system and playing next to Alex Kappa. So I think they're in a good place, expecting him to be able to go out there, protect Joe Burrow like the veteran that he is, and fill that role right now and probably hold it down until Mims is fully ready. And I think there's a pretty good chance Mims takes it over at that point.
Yeah, Trent Brown's done it the past few years with the Patriots himself, as you alluded to, in a way of like, doesn't practice much, but he's the kind of guy that just shows up on game day and executes. So I think Bengals fans will slowly find that out about him. But that's huge news for them with Amarius Mims. I mean, he played limited football in college. For him to look that good already as a rookie on the right side, I mean, that's huge news for them. When you've spoken with Mike Gesicki and Trent Brown, both guys that signed with the Bengals after leaving New England. And you talk to Gesicki, I mean, he's a receiving tight end. Last year, the situation the offense was in, no receiver would want to be in. But how have they spoken about the Patriots when asked about that, especially leading up to a rematch with their former team in week 1?
Well, you never know in these situations, but they're saying all the right things. There's been, a lot of stressing. There's no ill will. There's no anything like that. Now, Mike Gesicki, very happy to be in this situation instead of that situation offensively, catching passes from Joe Burrow, who has done nothing but make tight ends multimillionaires every year he's been in this league, from CJ Uzama to Hayden Hurst to even Tanner Hudson last year, from a practice squad player to a contract. Like, this is just something, it's some sort of cheat code to make guys money. And nobody has had more skill receiving the ball from Joe Burrow at that position since he's been in the league than Gesicki that he's had access to. And so he's a really fun piece to see how it can be. You saw their connection and creativity really grow as camp went on, as they kind of build. And he talked about that. It was really refreshing to have the kind of creativity that he can have, because Burrow has such an understanding of what he's seeing offensively in how he runs routes, how to adjust on the fly and not feel really kind of stuck in kind of a box of having to run the scheme. and can really open up what he can do. And they're really excited about building that. It may take a little bit of time as they get some real game reps in together, but yeah, he's been super refreshed about being here. But certainly no bad words from him or Trent Brown at all about their experiences in New England.
Yeah, for Gesicki, I bet this is just refreshing for him because when Mike McDaniel arrived to Miami, Gesicki didn't fit his scheme, comes to New England, wasn't fun for anybody. Has to be refreshing to be with the Bengals, with Joe Burrow, like you said, and also with a team that should be in the mix in the playoffs. All right, let's get into this Sunday a little more. I asked you about what Gesicki and Trent Brown has said, but is there anything you've picked up talking to the players this week or assistant coaches, what have you, or even the lead up the last few weeks, where there's any actual perceived threat from this Patriots offense where the defense, led by Lou Anarumo, is going, you got to watch this guy, you got to watch that guy, because I'll tell you, Paul, the offensive line stinks. The receivers are unproven. I don't know if they could get separation. They're led by rookies. And the quarterback play is in a complete question mark because we don't know what we'll get from Jacoby Brissett yet.
Yeah, you know what? There's been a weird amount of people not talking about this game. And I don't mean that. Now, granted, we're going in today on Wednesday for the first time in sort of a game week. Mm-hmm. The Chase cloud has just hung over so many things and been so much a part of the topic of conversation. And the big picture of the season has been so much a topic of conversation. Burrow's first game back from his wrist injury. All of these things have really kind of taken it over where, and they don't have, I mean, if this was Chiefs week 1, I'm going to bet that it would be a little different. And I don't think that's a disrespect to the Patriots. It's just a matter of how the narratives play out, where we haven't really heard a ton of conversation about the Patriots yet. I'm sure we will today. But I think that they view it the way they probably should view it. They wouldn't say it this way, but this is a team that the Bengals have as much continuity and high-level quarterback and passing game play as any team in the NFL. And going up against a team in week 1 that has very little of that, new coach, new quarterback in the building, new pieces, everything new. I mean, this is a game that they should win easily. They are set up to do so. And so I think probably they maybe feel that way. I bet we've not heard, there's certainly not been any disrespect or anything like that thrown out. We'll see what's said today. There's always a chance for bulletin board material. You never know.
Never know what could come out in the game week, but I think that's the reality of what the Patriots are now. I mean, there is a reason they have the lowest win total in the NFL, and from what I've seen all throughout training camp, I don't blame the Bengals for not really paying that much attention to the Patriots yet. But like you said, now it's when the game week preparation starts. You spoke about the continuity. Is that a concern for the Bengals at all? Brian Callahan now with the Titans. But of course, Zach Taylor's still the head coach, and Dan Pitcher gets elevated from quarterback's coach to offensive coordinator.
They have done everything in their power to keep Dan Pitcher from leaving this building for multiple years now, because teams have been, he was sought after for that Tampa Bay OC job, and they thought that was going to be his, and he decided to stay because he liked the idea of when he did get his chance, wanting to do it with Burrow, knowing Callahan was probably going to be a head coach soon. So he's sort of been being groomed and in waiting for this job for a long time and more than ready. So as big of a loss as Brian Callahan, who I think has been a rising star and does not get anywhere near enough credit for what he was able to do in helping this offense be what it was here, as much as that is a big loss, I just feel like they were so prepared for multiple years to have Dan come in and be the guy to be the OC that it has felt fairly seamless. And there's also not a lot of new personnel. So you're talking about it's Joe Burrow and T. Higgins and Jamar Chase and a lot of guys that you're familiar with. Like they can go out there and get it done. And you're doing a lot of the same things that you've been doing. And he's certainly going to have his tweaks. They have new ways that they can attack things with some of their new pieces, but their hammers are the same, and it's still Burrow, and nobody has had a better relationship with him than Dan Pitcher. So I don't think there's much worry about that. And you consider about half the league has turned over OCs this year or some kind of coordinator. It's like, that's the way it goes. The Bengals were living this life where somehow they went 5 seasons and they had all of their coordinators, front office and head coach all stay the same while winning games. It just doesn't really happen. So they've lived a very charmed life in that regard. And this is the first kind of time they've had to do even a little bit of adjustment. And it's hardly even felt like one because of the way they've had Pitcher in waiting.
Yeah, to go even on the reverse, the Patriots, 4 straight years, 4 different offensive coordinators or play callers, whatever you want to call what Matt Patricia and Joe Judge was, and 4 different systems. Now with Alex Van Pelt coming in from the Browns, of course, who the Bengals saw plenty of as a play caller. So we got to talk the other side of the ball a little bit. Lou Anarumo is still the DC, but this was one of the worst run defenses in the NFL last season, Paul. And that is where I think the Patriots can make this a game. I'm not confident to say they can win this game, but with Ramondre Stevenson, with a guy like David Andrews still at center, and with okay blockers, especially in the run game, how much is that of a concern when you look into Sunday of, well, the Patriots can make this a game, maybe make it closer, and do the small things like eat up the clock, take the air out of the ball, keep Joe Burrow on the bench, because the Bengals had a bad run D. They lost DJ Reader, and I don't know how they can fill a size that big with Reader lost from the defensive line.
Yeah, I mean, this is the path right now to beating the Bengals. I mean, this is their weakness. This is how teams beat them last year. In the AFC North, they were just dreadful against the run. I mean, one of the worst years in the division that we've seen from a run defense since it was invented in 2002. And then they lost Reader. And so they're trying to reformat the way that they play the run, and they believe that some of the communication issues that were a big part of their entire defensive problem last year are really fixed with Von Bell and Geno Stone entering at safety, just to have everybody feel like they're playing confidently, anticipate things like checks, reverses, runs, which is a lot of stuff that gave them a lot of trouble last year. But you still wonder, will they just get moved at the point of attack too often? You know, that was where Reader played so well. Sheldon Rankins and BJ Hill are fine, but they don't really have that big body run stuffer in there. So they're going to count on those guys to be a little bit more disruptive run stoppers, and then count on Logan Wilson and Jermaine Pratt, the linebackers, veteran linebackers that have been playing together in this system for multiple years, behind them to keep making those plays off of that. But will that work? I don't know. They think it will work better than it did last year. It's hard to imagine it being much worse than it was last year against the run. And so but yeah, if you're a team, you know, the Bengals early season is like this too. I mean, the Patriots, they have the Commanders, they're going to have Carolina, teams that have quarterback issues, passing game concerns potentially. They will probably look at it and say, let's line up and test this run D and see if this can be the path. And I think it probably is right now for New England.
It has to be. I mean, we don't know what they will get from Jacoby Brissett. He has experience with the system. Ramondre Stevenson now in this outside zone has looked good. And if there's a time to catch your Bengals, it's right now where Ramondre Stevenson is fresh and that offensive line is healthy. We'll see what we get on Sunday. Last one, Paul, you alluded to Geno Stone, Von Bell. Von Bell back for the Bengals. Are those two safeties that can help, you know, get past losing Jesse Bates last offseason, because you know how big of a loss that was for this Bengals defense?
They think this is going to make all the difference. The transition was a disaster last year. Losing Bates and Bell and switching to what was Nick Scott and then Jordan Battle and Dax Hill, it just didn't take. And they were, you know, Lou Anarumo's system is so dependent on communication and stability and really understanding all the things that he's trying to do so he can cook up a lot of the different things that he likes to do off of it. And they just weren't able to do that. And too often, you know, guys in front of them or to the side would be turning towards them right as the play is, wondering, is there even a check? Are you going to say anything? And they were just getting gashed. I mean, they led the league in explosive plays allowed. People were running wide open, and it wasn't lack of speed or talent. They were just not running the right direction half the time. And so it's like, bring in people that have intelligence, savvy, understand the game, and basically they said, can we bring Von Bell back? And then all of a sudden they were able to. And so they were pretty thrilled about that because he's one of the best communicators and nobody knows Lou Anarumo's system better from the safety position. Geno Stone, a ton of picks last year in Baltimore, who they had a lot of respect for and think he's a really smooth fit for them. So I think they think that can make so much difference. Just everybody playing confidently and knowing where they're going can take you from being in the bottom quarter to being in the middle. And let's be honest, with this Bengals offense and what they could potentially be, that's what they are, right? They're an elite offense and an okay defense, and that's enough to get you to the Super Bowl potentially. So that's where they're trying to get to, and I think they feel like that can really just make everything feel much more stable.
You might have just alluded to it. What is a good season for the Bengals this year, Paul?
Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase back in New Orleans, puffing on cigars, in recreating the LSU national championship. I mean, look, that's the expectation. They're all in. man.
Yeah.
I mean, they went franchise tag on T. Higgins to keep him around for one more ride, knowing that they were going to give Jamar Chase the bag or whatever, and they've paid Burrow. That starts to really hit you after this season. They've been able to spend, and they have a lot of guys that are making money on the defensive side of the ball, and all of that kind of sets up to, hey, you got to go for it. You got to. They're still in the window, and Burrow said the window is his entire career, and he's correct in that. But it's so wide when you have Chase and Higgins like that. Those three together are enough to win a Super Bowl. They've been close. When Burrow has finished the season, he has been to the Super Bowl and the AFC Championship game. So the expectations are for he can do things that Brady did, where if he's healthy and if he's out there playing, there's no reason they can't have the expectation be to be trying to play in the Super Bowl every single year. And certainly when you have the kind of weapons that they have right now.
Yeah, eventually Jamar Chase will be there on the field. And I know I said last question, but Paul, there's so many stories around the Bengals and a lot that intertwine with the Patriots. I have to ask about T. Higgins because that's a guy I said the Patriots should go out and trade for. You don't want him to hit free agency. Get him into the building, then pay him. But what do you think the likelihood is that T. Higgins is a Bengal next season after playing on the franchise tag?
Small. I mean, things change. I mean, you know how it is, man. One season and all of a sudden the things you talked about last year don't even apply anymore. But all signs point to him hitting free agency this year. I mean, the plan was to get him on a 5th year on the franchise tag, and then they let him go. Maybe they do some kind of a second tag trade scenario. Maybe things change dramatically. Maybe things get explosive with Jamar Chase during the season. Who knows? Like, seasons are wild, man. So things can change. But for now, I think the most likely scenario is that T plays. They hope he plays great. They hope he plays 17 games plus the playoffs. And then he goes and collects all kinds of money in March in free agency, and everybody feels like they can shake hands on that deal. And T has showed up. He signed the tag as early as he possibly could. He showed up at the beginning of camp. He has looked incredible in camp and looks like he's about, as motivated as a human being could be. And for a lot of reasons, it's obvious why. And so I think he's primed to have a big year and hit free agency.
Hey, the Patriots is over $120 million in cap space next offseason. They can go out and sign a guy like T. Higgins, something this offense vastly needs. All right, actual last one here, Paul. What's your prediction for Sunday between the Bengals and the Patriots out in Cincinnati?
Yeah, I think the Bengals are built to win this game handily. I mean, these early season games, teams that don't have any kind of continuity and have a lot of new pieces, it always takes a while to get everything going. Really, the first month of the season, the Bengals are just the exact opposite of that. Joe Burrow is coming off his first regular full camp in his life, really, in the NFL. I mean, he's not had this before. It's been appendicitis. It's been the calf. It's been lockouts. It's been coming back off ACL. For the first time, he's had all of these reps to bank and be ready. They're going to come in. They should absolutely have things kicking at a high gear right from the jump, and that puts them at such an advantage. They have so much talent playing at home. I think I have the Bengals winning probably by a couple of touchdowns.
Yeah, I see it that way too. 27-13, maybe 30-13, but I see the Bengals. This is an offense the Patriots right now just can't keep up with, and the continuity you pointed out. Dan Pitcher's still there, Zach Taylor's still there, Luana Rumo. Meanwhile, for the Patriots, rookie head coach, offensive play caller, an AVP, and a rookie defensive coordinator as well. He's Paul Dehner of The Athletic. Paul, the last shout out, not a question. Love your background. Probably one of my favorite Zoom backgrounds we've had on this show.
No problem. I make sure that my kids know, like, look, there are certain levels that you need to hit. You can't just show up with some random school artwork and think it's going to get on the wall, okay? Only the good stuff makes the wall, okay? So that's just the top stuff behind me. I've got some discarded, not good enough pieces over here to the left that I keep to remind them of the level that's expected.
Hey, the standard is the standard. And the standard in Cincinnati right now, AFC Championship, getting to the Super Bowl. The standard from Paul Dehner of The Athletic covering the Bengals is always the best. Paul, appreciate you taking the time, my friend.
Thank you.